I really view that AI, quantum computing, robotics, brain-to-computer interfaces are going to take us into an age that is so amazingly abundant that it means that countries like Chad are going to have, the clean water that they need, the electrical supply that they need, the solar energy they need, the healthcare they need.
We've built an incredible society and incredible technologies from AI to the internet to everything on that system. There's kind of three that I kind of focus on, right? The first one is eliminating disease. The second one, power. The playing field has been equalized by technology when it comes to the acquisition of knowledge, right? And so it's just it's an incredible thing. As I say everywhere, it's the greatest time to be alive in the history of our species. I think the one thing I've never said that I really believe is maybe it's my purpose, maybe it's a revelation of the things we're talking about, whatever. I feel that we are going through a huge change.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Love Conquers Fear podcast. In this podcast, we're talking with amazing scientists, spiritual teachers, entrepreneurs, investors, philosophers, and I'm having a blast with it. I hope you are too. It really matters what happens over the next 10 to 15 years for humanity making it to the age of abundance for all. It's going to be challenging. There are going to be a lot of disruptions along the way, and we'll be diving into those on today's episode and what ultimately we should do about them and how you all should be prepared for what's going to happen over the next 10 to 15 years. I've been on a real reading journey recently, and so I should probably just tell you why I'm wearing this shirt. First of all, I'm a huge New Order fan, so this is a shirt that says "Touched by the Hand of God," and I just finished a 3-part short story series that just came to me as something that I should write to paint an optimistic vision of how humanity could make it. The first short story is called God's Final Exam. The second short story is called God's Creative Power. And I'm just about to publish, it'll be published by the time you see this, God's Infinite Game. And I also just finished the Tao Te Ching. And the Tao is also known as the Way. And it really is the most ancient text about what source is, what heaven is, and the fact that it just flows through everything. And it is a loving force. And I would really encourage you to read it. I'm 53 years old, and it's the first time in my life that I've read it. But there's so much pattern recognition from reading about the Tao in so many other spiritual texts that I've read, as well as so much more, books on AI, consciousness, quantum physics as well. And today I am very happy to welcome Whurley to the podcast. Whurley is a very good friend of mine. We've had some phenomenal conversations here, both in podcasts together. We were on the Austin Next podcast back in May. We're on Cinco de Mayo. We recorded that with Jason Scharf and his father, right in the wake of the crazy moratorium call. Just to go back in a time machine here, ChatGPT launched just over 1,000 days ago. Okay, it launched on November 30th, 2022. It was in March, I think it was March 23rd of 2023, when the moratorium call occurred, where Elon Musk and a lot of so-called AI experts said, shut it down. Do not develop models any more powerful than GPT-4. And Whurley and I both thought that was ridiculous. I actually didn't know what Whurley was going to think about that. But as we went on the Austin Next podcast, we really found what each other thought about that. And I thought it was ridiculous. Fortunately, he thought it was ridiculous too. Maybe that didn't make for as entertaining of listening on a podcast. Maybe it would have been more fun if we were fighting about it. But ultimately, we did unpack like how we thought AI was going to play out, how it was going to lead to billions of personalized products and services. Whurley actually talked about something I had never thought about on that podcast, which was disposable software, which I was just listening recently, actually yesterday, to the chief product officer of OpenAI talking about the same thing. So he is very much a visionary, and he is a real quantum computing expert. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Welcome, Whurley.
Well, thanks for having me. I mean,
Yeah.
I remember that conversation, and I went into that conversation literally concerned. I'm like, I don't know what Brett is going to think.
Right. And it's
So I found it. Yeah, I think we found a lot of humor in the fact that we both came into it with the same opinions, but also with the same concerns about like, oh, I'm getting in an argument with Brett Hurd about this because he's not going to think, that about the future in the same way.
right.
But
Right.
no, but I think that was a really good talk because not only did we really, I feel, connect on that
We did.
talk, but also, and it led to so many other wonderful conversations, but we also came to this point of understanding that there needs to be a lot of attention and focus on what you said, that next 10 to 15 years, and how not only do we make it to an age of abundance, but how everybody gets to participate in that. And so
Exactly.
I think what you're doing with the podcast and all of the current stuff you're doing is fascinating. And so I'm super excited to be here and have this conversation.
Yeah. And I've modified the way that I talk about it to say the age of abundance for all.
Yeah.
And the reason I've done that is that I don't want people to view this as yet another kind of tech elite podcast, because
Right.
I really view that AI, quantum computing, robotics, brain to computer interfaces are going to take us into an age that is so amazingly abundant that it means that countries like Chad, which is number 187 out of 189 on the Human Development Index, and the GDP is $660 a person, are going to have, the clean water that they need, the electrical supply that they need, the solar energy they need, the healthcare they need, the food, et cetera, the water abundance. And I think if humanity can create an oasis in Chad, then we can create an oasis anywhere.
So you would have an easy answer to you want humanity to survive, right?
I love humanity. I very much want humanity to survive. I mean, not everybody loves humanity.
I don't know if it,
There are some very smart human beings I know that really think. Elon Musk was saying just a few months ago that humanity is nothing more than a biological bootloader for the future of digital superintelligence, and it's kind of a weird thing to grapple with, because I'm like, he acts like he loves humanity a lot. He wants to make sure
planetary species. All that.
exactly. And so I'm like, what I make of this, and at the same time he's leading some of the best innovations in the world. But I really communicate about humanity with a lot of love in my heart, because that's really what I feel.
That's the dichotomy, right? I mean, he also is like, we should have more babies, and he makes like a waifu on his AI app.
Right.
Nerds do not need a girlfriend. So, I mean, I think that's just that guy.
Right.
But no, I think about it. So I think it's really important. I mean, I jokingly reference that Peter Thiel interview where he's asked, "Do you want humanity to survive?" And there's a big pause.
Yeah, there's a big pause. He's like,
what about that?
Well,
And I agree with you. I think there's a really easy answer to that question, which is, of course.
Of course we do.
Obviously.
Right. Yeah, of course we do.
Also, being part of humanity, very interested in its prolonged existence.
Yeah. I think self-preservation is one order, but also just I want that Star Trek future for humanity. Like, I want us to conquer things like faster and light speed travel, and I want to be going with you to the edge of a black hole, like obviously not too close, or quasar, or go to another planet that is barren but could sustain life and like birth life there. And just there's no level to, or there's no limit to the amount of ambition we could have if we just allow love to conquer fear and not destroy ourselves in the next 10 to 15 years. And I'm 95% certain we don't. I'm very optimistic, but
I'm recently not as certain. Okay, I mean, generally in that same area.
Well, actually, where are you on that?
You talk about it. The one thing humans have as a core feature that has gotten us to where we are and that will take us all the places you're talking about is adaptability.
Yes.
Right? We're extremely adaptable as a species. And so, given that we can survive, and given that love can conquer all, we could do all the things you said in a really amazing way. It doesn't have to be like a Wayland Yutani alien corporate crazy, dystopian future.
Right.
It could be very utopian. And so I am always on the side of the utopian side of AI and quantum and all these technologies and technology in general. But have a little bit of reservation about some of the things I'm seeing, the movements around the world that are not based on love,
Right.
that are not very loving. I don't like the hate in the politics. I don't like oh, I gotta put you down for me to get ahead. All of these things, it seems almost like we're regressing and going backwards from where we've come
Yeah.
over the last few hundred years, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that part puts me at a 85%.
85.
Yeah,
I mean,
down from 90. It took about 10% off of it.
actually, look at me. I'm so optimistic. I just rounded up for you. You said 80. I
love it. So yeah, so that's kind of 90.
Yeah.
But no, I remain very hopeful. I think, I have a good friend, John Papola, and we did a podcast on AI and dystopia, utopia. And he has a show called Dad Saves America. And it was really about like, we talked about kids and the future and a lot of the stuff that we'll probably talk about and all of this. And I said, I believe, and I still do believe that this technology and the emergence of this type of technology at this moment in history is part of what will get us over that and get us to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I think, I was reading, the writings you mentioned earlier, your pieces that you sent, and I found it really, really fascinating because that kind of seems to be core to what you're doing right now.
It is.
That these things are not part of the problem. They're part of the solution and part of bringing people together,
Yes.
not driving them apart, part of putting us on the same page, not breaking us up as, other tech like social media and stuff has been used very, very skillfully to divide people and divide our opinions and make these tribes and these fiefdoms. It's like, it makes me think of, I was having a conversation with this priest once, and we were talking about aliens. And I thought I was being really smart. I said, well, what happened if aliens landed right there, And he's like, I would think God was even cooler and greater and more powerful.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't change any of his views at all. And we were talking about it, and I was like, not what I thought the answer was going to be. And I was like, that's a really great answer. That's a really great answer. And he asked me, is like, what would you think? And I said, I think it would be the greatest event in the history of humanity that would bring everyone together, because all of a sudden we would all look a lot more alike. It wouldn't matter what color your skin was or what your political preferences were, or your sexual preferences, or any of this stuff. All of a sudden it'd be like, ooh, we're humans. Yeah, that's us, right?
Well, genetically, we're almost identical.
Exactly.
If you take a 7 foot tall black basketball player and you look at their genetics as compared to a 4 foot tall Chinese monk, they're almost exactly the same.
But we don't look at it from that perspective.
No,
we
need to deprogram.
We need to deprogram a lot of that. And so, I think, we stand, and I say this, I think I said it on the podcast, Jason, I say it all the time. People are probably sick of me saying it. We are at the most significant consequential moment in time in the development of our species.
Yes.
And the decisions made over the next 2, 5, 10, 15 years are going to decide our fate.
Yes.
And where we get pushed to. And it's part of why I got into the quantum and the AI, and I've been trying to get as many people involved and democratize the knowledge and the things, is because of what you're saying, which is, to do that, there has to be a new kind of level set of, I think back to the digital divide, right? And like, who has the internet, has an advantage of who doesn't have the internet.
Yeah.
There's these inherent, we can't have this with this next set of technologies, because it will create a caste system, the likes of which we've never seen before.
Yeah.
That will be incredibly hard to overcome because of the tech.
Yeah.
So it has to be thinking about, tech in the service of people, with the goal of bettering humanity, not just by curing disease and all that, but by bringing people together. And not just the clean water in Chad, but like, how do they get an economy that's not $660 per person?
Right.
How do we get an economy that works for everyone, that it is inclusive of?
Yes.
And I think that's when you see the people you talk about who are not so big. They, maybe they can't answer the humanity question. Maybe they're contradicting themselves. It's because they have to, in my opinion, have an inherent fear of, right now I am here, and Brett and Whurley are here, and a whole bunch of people are here, and what you're talking about puts us all here.
Right.
And I think that's a problem for a lot of big egos. I think it's a problem for a lot of people. I have no problem. I would love to see everybody know, and those that we've never seen,
Yeah.
all have a great, amazing, wonderful life. It doesn't affect me. I don't care.
Right.
If all of a sudden,
Actually, it does affect you in a very
positive way,
because
that's right.
if the whole world was like that, oh my gosh, I mean, talk about bliss. Part of the way I look at the time that we're in, just to get a bit spiritual,
Sure.
for you, is that I believe that God is working through us. Now, other people could call that consciousness. Other people could call that the Tao. There's lots of things you could call that. I call it God. Um, and that what I wrote in that first short story, God's Final Exam, actually is what I believe is happening. I believe that, however old you think the universe is, let's just say it's 13.8 billion years old, although the James Webb Telescope just even
Right.
even challenged that,
Yeah.
said it's much older. But let's just say it's 13.8 billion years old. And, it took humanity a long time to get here. Humanity, in the span of the history of the Earth, is only 4 million years old in terms of hominids, and then 250,000 years old in terms of Homo sapiens. And there was a point in time 50 to 70,000 years ago. Actually, Byron Reese told me about this, and I had to fact check it, and he was right. He's so smart. But there was a time where we were down to 800 to several thousand people. During the Ice Age, there was a super volcano event. We know this through genealogical records. And so if our inherent nature was bad, then we would have wiped ourselves out. But I believe that God is like forcing this issue right now and working through us, and the manic race that's underway with AI, to see whether or not humanity is going to be the species in the universe that allows love to conquer fear, so that we can have access to the rest of the universe and technologies that are so mind-blowing. They will only be limited by the laws of physics, which frankly we don't even know if they are right now. And quantum physics gets very weird very quickly.
Well, you bring up some really good points. I mean, the thing I immediately think of is you talk about that catastrophe where we might maybe wiped out to 8,000 or so. And I think about the phenomenal sci-fi series, the Three Body Problem, right? And I think about the Netflix show, which a lot of people crapped on, but I thought, you can't take all of that and make it super widely consumable and not have to take a little liberty with stuff.
Right.
But I like the scene where they enter the simulation and they're talking to the Santi representative, and she's like, how long have you existed, right? How long have you really been here, right? And for 100,000 years, you're pretty much no different than ape. And how long did it take you to get from, hunter-gatherer to agriculture? How long from agricultural to industry, and industry to the information age, and, atomic weapons and atomic weapons information age, all this. And you see that time frame getting shorter and shorter and shorter as we advance, which makes sense.
Right.
Which brings me back to your point, which is all of a sudden the next 10 years seem like the past 100. And it seems super, so when you say 10 to 15 years, a lot of people might be like, might not understand that you're not just picking a random time frame, right? You're thinking about the evolution of technologies and how much faster things have been moving. And you're looking at, college students right now, around ages 25, they have like a 13.9% unemployment rate.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's getting, and things are already affecting. It's really nice to hear all the people say AI is not really going to be taking anybody's jobs, or it's not really doing that.
Yeah.
Or I read a really interesting article, which seems like a PR campaign. It's like, everybody who made that decision made a mistake. Turns out people are great. We have to lean into this and accept that this is no different than many of the other changes that have happened in the past. It's just a bigger change, and it's a faster change. And so our frame of time has to be completely rethought on this.
It does.
I hear people still talking about quantum computers 20 years away. They exist today, right? Are they the perfect quantum computer? Obviously not. Are there problems? Sure. But when people say, oh, we're not going to pay attention to that technology because I heard it's 20 years away, or I've been hearing it's 10 years away forever. Those are horrible attitudes to have, because it's the equivalent of saying, I know there's going to be an iPhone one day, so I don't want to use my Commodore 64. Or that gives me no advantage, right? Is this weird perception we have that we don't understand, entire industries are about to be turned on their head.
Yep.
Geopolitics, um, every single thing that is humanity, finances, everything.
Yeah. I just
Is
finished
is
the
going to be
geopolitics chapter in my book.
Okay, yeah, that's an important
Yeah.
part because
It's actually it's the first chapter in the second part of the book, which is on application. The first part of the book is on definitions. What is fear? What is
yeah, that's great.
And then the second part is on application for the biggest problems. And I start with geopolitics.
I'm gonna want a preview copy
Yeah, for sure.
because
You for sure will
like
get it.
what you wrote already. I
You for
love.
sure will get it, brother.
But yeah, but I think the thing is, we live in the most interesting, most important time to be alive in the history of our species. Everything from, and I know things like mRNA get a lot of criticism, incredible technology,
Mm-hmm.
right? You look at, AI getting criticism, incredible technology. So we're being, we're creating through, I believe, some inspiration. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I am the least likely candidate to be running a quantum computing company that's done what it's done, let alone what it's about to do. But I felt a calling to it. So when you talk about that, I can totally relate to that.
Yeah.
Because there's no rhyme or reason. It wasn't like it's like I mean, in fact, out of everything I could have done after Honest Dollar, I'm sitting at Goldman Sachs thinking, obviously I'm not a Goldman guy. What am I going to go do? I could have done 100 things. I could have done another finance company. It'd been easier to raise money, but this was actually the hardest path I could have picked.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the one that I felt in my heart was the right path.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter the level of difficulty or that it might take 10 years to do what I could do somewhere else in 1 or 2. It mattered that I wake up every day inspired and excited about what I'm doing
Yeah.
because I feel like that's the thing I'm supposed to do. And I've always approached it as, I'm not going to win a Nobel Prize for something in this. I'm not going to create a cure to a disease or doing things, but I'm a catalyst for a whole bunch of other people that might, if I can disseminate that technology as wide and as evenly distributed as possible.
Let's rewind. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot that I want to unpack and all the things you just said. And I want to get to what we mutually would recommend to people to both prepare
Awesome.
for, et cetera. But I don't want to start there. I want to start with you.
Sure.
And where'd you grow up? Like, if you look at what you're doing now as the CEO of Strangeworks and go all the way back to the beginning and say, like, kind of the Steve Jobs thing, the commencement speech you gave at Stanford, like, how do the dots connect in reverse to get to the Whurley of today?
They connect in a way that both seems very disconnected, but to me, every single core memory I have in my life
Mm-hmm.
is a part of a bigger picture that's a much greater sum than the parts that is where I'm at, right?
Yeah.
So,
I feel exactly the same way about my life, by the way.
so born in Virginia, in Manassas, military family, moved around when I was young, Arizona, other places. My memories, my core memories are Nuremberg, Germany. And my brother was born in Nuremberg. He's 5 years younger. And playing real football, not American football, in Germany, and being on the base there. Um, that's kind of where it starts. Like if I go back as far back as I can remember, I have memories I will take to my grave of all manner of things during there. That, was awesome. My dad did work with technology in the Army at one point. And so when I kind of like around 6th grade started really getting into I'll dig the computers, and partly inspired by war games or whatever, right? And Dr. Falcon and all that stuff.
Oh, I love that
I mean,
movie,
we all kind of, a lot of us our age, like that was big. If you're on the fence, you're like, well, now I'm into it because,
Right.
he saved the world and had a hot girlfriend and everything. Like this computers are great. Um, but I remember that Professor Scott at Lamar Middle School was talking to my parents. I think
Have we talked about just the fact that we both went to Lamar Middle School?
No.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I had Dan Eggleston as my I don't think they called it computer science professor back then or teacher.
Oh, wow.
But he and I are still
Oh, that's super.
friends today.
Well, see, that's
he had a
one of
big
those
impact.
things coming together,
Yeah.
even sitting here.
Yeah.
So Dr. Scott had a big impact on me, but not for that reason. Because he told my parents that in the future, even a cash register at McDonald's would be a computer, means that your son won't be able to have a job at McDonald's.
Right.
And because I didn't like doing the lessons, I liked screwing around with it and seeing what this does and, doing whatever. And of course, those were on those old TI-99 4As, right?
Yeah.
You're lucky you had the 2 floppy drives.
Yeah. I started out with the Atari, but yeah,
Okay.
I very familiar with the TIs.
And so, that led me into just, my dad started really trying to support the 2 things, music and technology. And then around high school, coming out of high school, I was playing band. I started realizing
Where did you go to high school?
the Temple High School.
Okay.
So my one of my good friends, Graham, was amazing at programming synthesizers and everything. And and he was like, yeah, because the music is a computer science, right? Like these are all mathematical things, right? There's 8 notes and quarter notes and 16 notes and there's and that's where I started kind of connecting them.
Mm.
And that led to hacking together code in Macromind Director before it was Macromedia on Lingo X objects, because you could correct the MIDI SMPTE timing, and if there was a lot of things that were deprecated calls that weren't quite deprecated, so there was a lot of packet collision stuff. If you fix that, you can make some money.
Yeah.
And that led to my job at Apple, answering phones at Apple.
By the way, just a real quick aside, and I'll come back to this, but given I'm wearing a New Order T-shirt, I want to build up your T-shirt. The song Blue Monday,
Yeah.
like they had to write a lot of the code
Yeah.
for that.
Yep.
And it was really, really an intense computer science challenge to create that song. And there's a great podcast. It's 2 seasons called Transmissions, which is a story of Joy Division in New Era. But that episode on Blue Monday, you just remind me of
all of
they,
the science.
they had to write the software programs to even create.
Think about the Fairlight.
Yeah.
What it was, and
Yeah.
when sampling was coming in, what you were talking about doing from a technological standpoint was insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I got the job at Apple, and the rest is kind of history. I feel like
What year was that?
1993. I feel like I really cut my teeth at Apple.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I went into IBM, and
Wow, that's so
being
cool
part
that you
world
were there then. Did you meet Steve Jobs?
yeah, twice I ran into him. I wouldn't say I met him, or we really had a big conversation. But I did learn he has the best joke in Silicon Valley, which was what's the difference between Larry Ellison and God? And the punchline is, God doesn't think he's Larry Ellison.
Oh,
and it's still my favorite joke of all time.
Yeah.
But Steve was off doing next. So Steve was kind of, that was on the axe. You had Scully and Emilio, Gil Emilio, and things weren't going well. And of course, I had amazing stint at Apple. I went from answering the phones to leading internet training programs to working in R&D on, effectively what is the USB-C connections we use out, right? All the FireWire standards and all of that stuff, and the set-top box.
Yeah.
So then I got to see TiVo a few years later and be like, that's what we were doing.
Right.
But
Apple TV today is pretty big.
But I feel, look, Apple has something that I'd like everybody listening to take to heart and attitude. It's what we're doing at Strangeworks is what I try to do with my life. And I'm desperately trying to teach my 9-year-old this, because he really wants to be first. He's in that phase. And you're right, Apple TV is huge now and going to get larger. And when you think about it, it goes back to the core fundamental principles that I learned at Apple with some of the most amazing mentors and people in R&D in the history of technology. It's not about being first, it's about being best.
Mm-hmm.
And being best means a lot of things. I think to like Ender's Game, right? It's like how you win matters.
Right.
It really does.
Yeah.
And I think right now with technology and thinking about, it's just about winning. Right. So, we went from this hustle culture.
It's not just technology.
Yeah. It's global. And we went from this hustle culture in tech, which was weird to me always. It's like, if you're programming at 3 a.m, do you really know how to program? Or like, maybe you can't manage your time.
Right.
And a lot of questions about that. And we went from there to this like winning at all cost. And I don't think that's not how I'm going to live my life. I don't think it's a great way for anybody to live their life.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right, we've changed that. But that was kind of my journey. And the rest is just, all the stuff that's pretty well documented everywhere out there, of just bouncing between big companies and startups, and then eventually starting startups, and started in the beginning doing what everybody does.
What was your first startup?
Well, my first startup I worked at, or the first startup I founded, because they're different. The first startup I worked at was a company that was going to do, and Napster was really big at the time, and we were going to do like resumes, but using a peer-to-peer network. So that as a recruiter, you might see my skills, but not who I am. But as we talked more, I'd share more data or whatever, so you could kind of be applying for jobs on the side. That didn't work out. I was right at 2000 with the crash and everything. Very valuable lesson.
That sounds like it could be an interesting rebooted indeed right now.
Right?
Just a little,
Yeah. Well,
little teasers.
Romy should call me up. We'll talk about it.
Right.
But then I worked at Mike Irwin, my business partner who passed away a couple of years ago. Incredible influence on my career.
Sorry to hear it passed away.
He did a company called Symbiont, which was the first countermeasures on the internet. That was, again, a really awesome experience. And then, turns out a lot of governments, even ours, not big fans. So, a very big lesson in a lot of other areas of the world and politics and business. So really, when I first got out on my own is about 2009, I was working at DMC. I had done the iPhone dev camps with Raven Zachary and Chris Messina and Don Segol and all those guys. We got together a bunch of people that bought iPhones and a bunch of hackers in Adobe's offices, about 400 people, and we hacked on apps because Steve said there wasn't going to be apps. Apple just give you the apps, and it was clear there was going to be apps. And that was a really one of several defining moments in my career, because at that, Tim O'Reilly, everybody was there. Investors were there. They're like, started app company, started this, and I was going to do it. And I thought back to a lesson I learned from a couple of people, but predominantly Alan Kay, which was kind of pioneers get arrows in the back. And it was in that moment, it was like Obi-Wan Kenobi was like, don't start a company right now. Like, wait, patience, take your time.
Right.
And I also thought back to the Apple lessons I learned about it. It's not about being first. First to market is something I just think is that, like, it's an ancient concept that doesn't really belong in the modern world. It is about, being the best. And so I waited 3 years and worked at BMC Software for 3 years until 2009 in November and left. And at South by, I launched Chaotic Moon with Mike, and we had found Ben and brought him on. And it was awesome, and it was a great experience. But here's the difference. It was for fun and money, 100%. It led all three of us as founders on different paths.
Yeah.
The path I got left on was pretty depressing. I was very depressed in the latter days of it, because I had grown up pretty poor, and now I had all this money, and I had anything I wanted, and traveling all over the world doing that. I thought for a while I wasn't satisfied. The reality was I wasn't happy. And I realized that your happiness can't come from success or material things or whatever. It comes from the relationships. It comes from the interactions you have and those inspirational moments and your family and stuff. And so, I was really, really in a bad spot. Tons of girlfriends, tons of travel, all the right parties, it was great, but it wasn't, satisfying. And so that's when, I thought, okay, the next thing I do has to have an impact, like a social impact. And so I did Honest Dollar because, there was this big argument that Uber drivers should be made employees because they get benefits. And I was like, yeah, but then they still have to pay for benefits as an employee.
Right.
I thought this is a great thing to make a solution that's super cheap and affordable, that puts them in something that's not going to rip them off, which a lot of 401ks do. That's not a financial product made to fleece them, but actually lets them build savings. And, Cata got acquired by Accenture, Goldman acquired Honest Dollar, and ran it for quite a while and did a really good job with it. I mean, to their credit, I don't think they changed the name for like 6 years. It was awesome. And I really liked my time there, and I learned a lot there. Everybody thinking, they're this evil company, like there's bad actors at every company. And when you're dealing with billions of dollars, those people get a lot more press.
How long were you at Goldman Sachs?
A couple of years, and then kind of like, available to them for a little bit longer than that. Because I was there in 2016, March, went on CNBC, said they're acquiring it, we're doing it. it was December of 2017 that I, formed, Strangeworks. And then in March of 2018 is when I went out. So, almost exactly a couple of years. And then I stayed, working with them and, all of that. They're a much, being inside, it's a much different perspective, it's a much different company than you might think. I love them. In fact, I talked to Tim O'Neill, who's a legend, this morning, and that's the kind of relationships they have there. I mean, I haven't talked to Tim since I left.
Yeah.
And he was vice chair of Goldman, and he left. And I texted him out of the blue the other day on the holiday weekend and said, "Hey, I'd really like to bounce something off of you." He said, "How's Tuesday morning?" And it's a culture of teamwork. Like everybody has a pair. But so, and that was an
I got some exposure to them. They were a big investor in Data.World.
Oh yeah.
They really did everything they could to be helpful, make intros.
Yeah, it was super interesting. But getting off that digression, Chaotic Moon was a startup for fun and profit.
Mm-hmm.
Honest Dollar was a startup to help people and kind of do something in a tiny little bit of the world that I saw that I thought you could move the needle on.
Mm-hmm.
Coming off of that, I really wanted to go all in
Yeah.
on something that I didn't really care what anybody thought. And I can tell you, we've both been in the Austin Business Journal a ton of times. If you go back and have it framed, you look at when I was on the cover, beautiful cover. I'm in the Large Hadron Collider. It's open, like it's a great photo op. And the title of the cover is Whurley's way out there on this one.
Right.
And for years I was like, it's so cool. I was trying, and until I was with an investor who said he was looking at it in my office. He goes, "Wow, that's hilarious." He goes, "Do you do that so later you can be like, haha, I made it?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?"
Right.
And he was like, "Oh, I mean, come on, dude. That title's just to say this guy's lost his fucking mind."
Oh, no.
And then I read through it and reread it and I had a whole different perspective on the article. And I was like, oh, they meant like, so far we followed this guy. He's done okay. Like,
right.
mobile apps make sense. Finance makes
Right.
sense. Maybe he's a little off his rocker. But the whole point was
honestly,
to do something that really would impact the world in as big as possible. And the only way to do that was to go from fun and profit to I'm making a change to I'm going to empower millions of other people to make a change. And I gave a talk in Abu Dhabi in December of last year called The Power of a Billion Minds. And that really sums up the mission.
Is that online?
Yeah. And it really sums up the mission I'm on, which is if you took everybody involved in science and if we could break down the walls between spirituality and science and all this stuff and just like, look, there's a lot of commonality there and they coexist easily. You don't have to be you don't have to be an atheist scientist or a super religious person who hates technology, right? Like you can do both of those things and love technology and be like, I'm a spiritual person.
Right.
So the concept was do something that gets amplified by a lot of other people. Like I said, I'm not going to be in the history books for it. Somebody else might be for something they do with it. And that's great.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the most wonderful feeling for me.
Since we invoked Steve Jobs, just real quickly, one of the favorite videos I've ever seen of him was in the quote unquote lost archives in Santa Clara University, where it's actually mentioned in my first book, The Entrepreneur's Essentials, where he is interviewed and he said, look, in tech, you have to be content that you're just building a layer in the sand that other people are going to build on top of. You're not building the Taj Mahal. This is not going to stand the test of time. Nothing in tech.
You're making like the sand for the bricks.
Exactly. And that is where you should get your kind of high from.
That's so relevant. And I really do with this effort. And I like, and then I wrote the babies book, and everybody, it was kind of a joke, but Chris Ferry was so gracious to work on that with me. He has a wonderful series of books. And then I did the Dummies book.
Give the title of that book.
Quantum Computing for Babies.
You know what? I actually own this book.
But I thought, it's kind of like, I'm going to go down to that level and try to be able to explain it there. And then with each book, I've been building the depth of it and the breadth of it as I've grown in the space, right? Like I'm not a physicist, I'm not whatever. I've never claimed to be. I think in my opening talk at South by, I was like, look, I'm no Neil deGrasse Tyson, but, but when I talk about this, this need to, to, to make an impact on the world, that's what a lot of people get hung up on. And they're like, I want to make an impact on the world, and it's ego because they want to be the one to make the impact. I want to provide a whole bunch of tools for a whole bunch of other people to make impacts. If you take all of the science in the world, every funding, every scientist, everything, I mean, imagine that as the key to this house, okay? And we went over to the Q2 field. I'm a huge Verde fan.
Yeah.
And we threw it in the middle of the soccer pitch. That key representing all of science would be surrounded in a sea of green that would represent the rest of humanity.
Yeah.
So if what you're saying is so important, if the next 10 to 15 years are important, if what is now your life's mission, I really admire, I'm a big fan of, is so important, then we have to get a lot more people involved in that aspect of it as well.
Yes.
We have to break down the barriers on education, on cost, and all of this, and really share that. And so
it has to be team humanity. We have to make it together.
It has to be.
This is not a zero-sum game.
And so that's why, when I gave that talk, it's been a series of talks building up to that one, but that one, The Power of a Billion Minds, was, what if you could have a billion minds looking at a problem? It's insane, just mathematically, just statistically, like what your odds of solving. We have so few people even aware of the problems. We always talk about, oh, if technology was so great, we'd have a cure to cancer. Which one? Because they're all different. There's a ton of them.
Yeah.
Like these problems are a lot of these problems are borderline intractable. They're so complicated, and so how do we put the quantum into all of the science and put as many people into the science as possible and make it where you don't know that you're using quantum or a TPU or a GPU.
Right.
You're working on solving a problem.
Yeah.
And by the way, why would we not take ideas from people who don't have training in that? Because cross-pollination of ideas and the way somebody does something mathematically in optimization for logistics and how that could be used to optimize the rotamer chain and the amino acids in a rotamer chain or something, like why are we like, well, sorry, if you were a doctor, you'd understand why I don't want your opinion as a guy that works at FedEx, but math is math is math. And I think we have a lot of the answers we need right now. We just haven't aligned them.
Yeah.
And I think the thing for me that you and I share is alignment, right?
Yes.
My job is not CEO, is not coming up with, everybody's like, oh, you set the vision, or you're the boss, or you do this, or you're the face. That's my only job is alignment. When the needs of my employees and the needs of my customers align, magic happens. Yeah. Needs of my investors in my company, magic, so on and so forth. I just spend every day going around trying to knock things back into alignment where the energy flows through those channels, right? Yeah. And I think that's what we need to do with science as a whole, and maybe spirituality too. And everybody is got all of these different views, and they're not really that different.
No,
they like to think that they are.
Yeah. Actually, the more I have dove into ancient spirituality, whether it's the Tao, whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, whether it's ancient Vedanta, which predated a lot of religions, ancient Christianity, ancient Judaism, including Kabbalah. I'm Jewish, but I've ultimately found that there is this eternal oneness and unity that connects them all. And that's what I was trying to approach in my short story, is that.
But I think you hit it. Like, that was part of what I liked about your short story, is I think you did hit that collectiveness of like, oh, and if you go back and you really study, religions, which is not something I'm in any way an expert on, but there are a lot of stories like the Bible in other religions, over a dozen,
of course,
that you can point to that predate it.
Yes.
So you can take the view of, well, that's, we need to have a higher power, and the view of atheism or agnosticism or whatever, or maybe you could look at it from this human view and be like, it seems like a lot of people for a lot of times have all come to a really similar conclusion.
Yeah.
And maybe that's something that should be explored more.
Yeah.
My wife is on a religious journey right now, which I'm not going to talk about because I don't want to get in trouble. And
yes,
and it's hers, but she's been on a spiritual journey, and it's been the most fascinating thing to not just watch, but participate in. and you just say, like, why is there a problem if there is a God, or it's the universe, or it's entanglement, or whatever? What's the problem if everybody is loving each other? If we're raising each other up, if we're doing things that I think you should be doing as a good person anyway,
Yeah.
who cares? And maybe you don't have to define it, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But how do we get as many people to live their life that way, and then take the technology and make that technology as one of the first things that becomes abundant for that group of people to go solve and do all the things you said about,
Yeah.
terraforming a planet, or, curing a disease, or whatever. Because I think that the next 10, 15 years, I mean, you say 10 to 15, I'm really worried. I like to think 1959, Jack Kilby invents the integrated circuit. Before that, you bought transistors one at a time for radios. To now, compress that into like 2030, 2035.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where my
Yeah.
head is at on, it's a little faster. And yeah, it's extremely important.
Yes.
It's the decisions that will be made, and we're starting to see the rise in nationalism, which disintegrates that a lot. It definitely degrades it. We're starting to see a lot of movements that are not going in the right direction, either from a humanitarian perspective, from a spirituality perspective, or from a technology perspective. Right? There's this fragmenting,
Yeah.
and it worries me that at the one moment in time that we're actually going to get world-changing technologies, that we've fallen back to, like, the 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 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, about, like, I have to capture this resources for my tribe kind of approach, and that there's not collaborations. Not It goes from universities not collaborating, to states not collaborating, to countries not collaborating, and I really fear that that is the biggest threat to what you're talking about in your writings, and in your podcast, and what you're doing. Is
Yeah.
the fact that it starts with collaboration that's based on an understanding. We don't have to be the same person. We don't have to agree on spirituality. We don't have to agree on technology. We don't have to agree on everything.
Right.
Just have to agree that we can listen to each other, and think about that, and maybe gain a new perspective,
Right.
and provide some feedback that's maybe useful to you, and maybe we collaborate with other people, or maybe one day those all come together. But I think there's this you have to be on this team approach, and that's not how saving our future works.
Right.
We're all, like you said earlier, team humanity, right? Like,
Yes.
that's where we have to be.
Yeah, I mean, I love that, and I agree with you, by the way, on the scale of the challenge. I'm approaching that very clear-eyed in the book, and actually, the most difficult part of the book of all is part 3, which is on transformation, which is how do we transform to actually make it to the age of abundance for all, and realize that this unity, this kind of ancient prophecy that's in every spiritual tradition of heaven and earth merging. I actually think it's this lifetime for you and me, and for most of the people listening to this, maybe not if they're like super old, but if they're kind of in our general age range, or maybe even a little bit older than us, and they're going to survive for the next, 15, 20 years, that my version of that, both mystically and metaphorically, is this age of abundance for all, where the only way we will make it to that age that I can see is if love conquers fear. I don't see any other way, because we're going to be dealing with technologies that are so incredibly powerful
Yeah.
that they can manifest great, great harm,
Yeah.
and they can manifest great, great good. The destiny of humanity has always been to create easier, more loving lives through technology. It started with the discovery of fire. We could use fire to set people on fire and burn down villages, or we could use it to cook our food and create, warmth in our home.
Let's talk about the two things. One, there's a scale for this, right? Of planetary development, right?
Yes.
And when you think of Kardashev scales and stuff, and you think about that, yeah, we're at that point of going to, like, this next, like, it's a huge leap.
It's
right?
a huge leap in a short period of time.
It's a huge leap in a short period of time, and the chasm is extremely wide.
Mhm.
And we're doing everything we can to, like, well, let's not run from the edge. Let's go back a few. Like, we're going backwards again, is my belief. But you said something there that was really, really interesting. Um, when you talk from your perspective,
Mhm.
and writing this book right now, would you have openly said is like the most important thing you've ever written,
Yes.
which I
Sure.
completely
Yeah.
can
I
see.
can't think of anything more important that I could be doing right now than putting it all on the field to help humanity get there. And to be clear, like I don't view myself as like a savior. I think a lot of people are bringing the light. I think Mustafa Suleyman's bringing the light. I think Demis Hassabis is, Dr. Fifi Lee, Mira Murati, Reid Hoffman, Eric Schmidt. I mean, there's a lot of people that are putting it all out there on the field and realize the stakes and are technologically proficient enough to realize how exponential this actually is. I mean, for me, a week of tech progress right now in 2025 feels like a year 10 years ago.
I would, for me, the world I'm in, I think it's even more,
Even fast.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
I think we went from like a yearly thing to a quarterly to a monthly to a weekly. I feel like every day there's some new thing
Yeah.
that, is just like really, really amazing.
Yeah.
So,
Mind blowing. Yeah.
but we've talked, we keep dancing around a couple of topics, kind of three topics: the fear of technology, right?
Mhm.
The fear of each other,
Mhm.
right? I mean, there's certainly, we've built a world based on us versus them, and
Mhm.
since the Cold War, and now the new kind of Cold War, and all this stuff, and then kind of this almost fear of spirituality, almost like you know it's a bad thing if you're religious or spiritual or whatever.
Mhm.
And I'm super spiritual,
Mhm.
not super religious. My grandmother took me to synagogue, went to Methodist, Baptist, Catholic. I mean, I've been to
You do
all of
those
those.
rings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've got a respect for all of those.
Mhm.
And
And you
and
should. Yeah.
and if you want to get respect for all of those, or if you have a question, go to Jerusalem, go to Vatican City, go into the catacombs, and be like, that's the body of the guys they wrote about a couple thousand years ago.
Mhm.
And there's like a record of everyone who's watched them for that. So if
Right.
you have a record of your fathers, 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 fathers being there and knowing that, puts a little different perspective on it.
Sure.
Some of this stuff is extremely well documented. And again, more spiritual, I think they they all have that, but that we have to get people to be comfortable in their own stance. We put so much, and I blame social media a lot on this, put so much on what other people think. What will they think if I say I go to church? What will they think if I say I'm this? Oh, you're Jewish. Should I say that I'm Catholic or not, or whatever? We put all of these weird things
Yeah.
when, like,
That's just all programming bullshit.
it's all programming bullshit. And so there's that, and then you say, okay, the fear of each other. Um, we don't look for opportunities of collaboration. We seem to seek out opportunities for confrontation,
Mhm.
because through that confrontation, we can prove that we're right, or we're just, or we're whatever.
Mhm.
And that really, really bugs me, that's driving politics. It's driving geopolitics, driving everything.
Yeah.
And it's going to drive us into the ground, right? So you've got this fear of being open about your spirituality. Who cares?
Yeah.
And the reason we have that fear, I think, is part because we have that kind of like angst against each other, it seems, on a thing. So by telling me what your spirituality or your religion is, you're potentially giving me an arrow in my quiver to shoot right back at you, right?
Mhm.
And that's a big, big problem for me. I just meet so many people all over the world that don't have that attitude. And then when you go out into the world, it really exacerbates it, where you're like,
Right.
oh, I see this everywhere. Like if you go to Xena puts on this amazing conference called Expanse. You go there, it's like Burning Man meets TED meets South by meets whatever, and you're like, these people are all wonderful.
Mhm.
If I was, everybody's gonna get their moment in the sun. Nobody's competitive. Everybody's helping these incredible communities. What Yarrow Kramer has done with Hatch, phenomenal community. We have too few of those, so we need more of those, because if you fix that middle problem, I think you fix the problem over here
Right.
on this side. The fear of technology then becomes the biggest problem,
Right.
because we overhype it, and we make a bunch of promises. We got all these crazy dystopian sci-fis,
Mhm.
and we have literally, talking about the bullshit programming, programmed people to be scared of AI and robots and all of these things. And, you know, you were talking earlier about, fire and could have been used for this or that. You know, I gave a talk at the Vatican, at the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, and I was supposed to talk more about quantum. I talked a little bit more about AI and quantum and how they're together and kind of this dystopian views you'll have in the future. Um, you and I have talked about this, but we used to think electricity was going to burn down entire towns, right? Like that was a thing, right? Um, you can go through everything from fire to electricity to nuclear, on and on and on.
Yeah.
And there are almost every time these two opposing views, and the one that wins out is the fear, right? Fear is an incredible, incredible power. It's an incredible motivator.
Yeah.
And I think
Actually, let me just
Yeah.
challenge that because actually I don't agree with that. Like it was fearful at the beginning. You know, think about the telephone. Like people
Yeah.
thought it was an instrument of the devil, etc. And
Yeah.
but we did conquer that. Like actually we did. We did.
Oh no, I think we can conquer it. I'm just saying.
But at the beginning it
I'm
was
saying,
very fearful.
I guess my point is, you're exactly right. What my point is we start from this hope and fear, right? And we seem to start on this defensiveness of fear.
That's the amygdala.
Right.
I mean, that's the way our brain is wired.
And fair enough, right? Our fight or flight and all of that. Exactly. And I think the thing as having to change all of this is we have to think about things before we say them in technology and the impacts. We have to openly address the things that people are fearful about to lessen that, to put us on a little more even ground. And where I hope we go to in the next 10 years is we start with a optimistic, hopeful view as these new technologies start to emerge. And there are going to be dozens of world-changing new technologies that emerge in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And not start with that fear thing, because you're exactly right. But it's a great, it's a biological motivator. I mean, what you're saying about the amygdala, it is part of our makeup.
Yeah.
And you talked earlier about transcending things, and you said that
Yeah,
third part of the book of transformation and transcension is super hard, because the hardest part is we literally have to kind of rewire our brains to think about power and love. The thing that has helped me get to where I'm at today more than anything is my wife. My wife loves love. She celebrates love. She's all about love. She's all about the universe loves anything into that. And you can't be around a person like that and not have it influence you in a really positive way.
Yeah.
And it's taken away my need to be competitive. It's taken away all of these things. And the more that those things have been dropped off, the lighter I get and the faster I move towards something better and the happier I am, just in general. Like, I'm under more pressure now in my life in every way, shape, and form, from the obvious national security implications of the work I'm doing on and what other countries think, to the funding pressures, all the entrepreneurial stuff, to just the personal pressures, like traveling too much and out with the family. I've never been happier or felt more confident and secure in myself and my love for my wife and my love for my family and where we're at as a unit.
That's
And
beautiful.
all of that credit goes to my wife. And but it took a long time to get there. And the thing that I worry about when you talk about 10 to 15 years is it probably took me 10 years to get there, in all honesty, if you're objective with yourself. I was not that person 10 years ago. And I'm a fairly smart guy that grew up in you have to be very objective with yourself. Sorry, you suck, right? Like my dad had no problem like calling it exactly like it is. And even with that upbringing, even with that attitude, it took me 10 years to change. And we probably have 2 to 3 years for people to change their hearts and minds.
Yeah.
If the next 7 are going to be used to prevent the bad things and put us on that utopian path.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm like, not saying like, it took me this long, it takes everybody that long. I'm thinking, what could inspire
What's the catalyst
for us, for an entire species?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Who have the complexity of that problem gets so huge because you have different religions and different financial status, different upbringings, different,
Let's come back to this because this,
I'm thinking about your third part of the book now. Like openly
no, I love it.
It seems monstrously hard.
It is monstrously hard. In the first short story, God's Final Exam, I do talk about what that catalyst would be that would unite us all. But let's come back to that because I want to come back to transformation. I want to rewind a little bit because a lot of people watching this don't know anything about quantum computing.
Yeah.
They don't even know how it works. They don't know anything about quantum physics. And that's not to say there's not a tremendously talented, intelligent number of people watching this. It's just that most people haven't had any exposure to it. I personally learned a ton about quantum computing in the last year. I didn't know that much about it, even though I've been in tech
Trust me, no one's
for a long
offended by that because I was in New York last week with some incredibly smart people. And, I was like, okay, before I start, who has heard of quantum computing? Right. Or whatever.
How many did you?
Yeah. I mean, it's you out of a room. So there were 50 in the room. I'd say about 4 or 5,
Wow.
which is changing depending on the rooms.
Mhm.
I'm going to say right now it's about 3 out of 10. If I take all of the times I've opened with that and averaged them, it's been 0 out of 10 for 7 years.
Right,
So,
right.
so we're on a great
You're on a good trajectory.
Yeah.
So I really want the audience to just have like the 5-minute Whurley, education on what is quantum computing, how does it work, how are we going to make it stable, why should people care?
Actually,
Yeah.
it's literally
It's an elevator
my
pitch, right?
favorite thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, I have done more talks about this around the world for no reason than I have for anything with the business, right? Because I I love it. I think it's so important. So
It is really cool.
let's put that into perspective. People can understand. So right now, from your iPhone or Android phone to the greatest supercomputer in the world, it all works on bits. They're all very standardized, and bits are effectively a little gate, right? We block a signal, it's a 0, we let it do it's a 1. We've got 3 billion transistors in your freaking iPhone, and we use a big hunk of those for error correction, which is basically we run the math and then we check the math.
Mhm.
We've built an incredible society and incredible technologies from AI to the internet to everything on that system. But there's a lot of things beyond that scope, intractable problems. This is where we get into finding new sources of energy, um, the material science we need to go terraform those other planets, not curing diseases, but eliminating them, all of these things. And so when you think of those bits, you say you have 4 bits, you have 16 outcomes. And on a classical system, which is what we call today's computers, you can be in any one of those outcomes at any moment in time. And if I add a 5th bit, I now have 25, and it can be in one of those. Everything we know works that way.
Mhm.
But now, take something like a salt atom or some atom, blow it up, pull an electron off, cool it down as cold as space, so just a little bit above, 0 Kelvin, trap it with lasers in an ion trap, do any one of a number of different techniques to control this. And instead of that gate, we have a soccer ball, straight up to 1, straight down to 0, and we can orient it in any position, and we can invoke the laws of quantum mechanics and do some really cool things. So things like teleportation, superposition, and entanglement, those are probably the 3 most important terms to know around that. And so if I have 4 qubits,
Mhm.
I still have those 16 outcomes.
And that's what these are called, a qubit versus a bit.
That's right. But I can be in all 16 outcomes at the same moment in time,
Mhm.
right? If I add a bit, I then have 2 to the n the number of bits. And so why is this
If you had a qubit.
if you add a
Yeah,
qubit?
yep.
That's right. Why is this so powerful? Why is this so important? Traveling salesperson is a horrible example to give, but it's the one that will help people understand it the most. I have a brand new MacBook. It's got 128 gigs RAM. I'm doing all my modeling on it. It's decked out. You and I want to go to 14 cities to share this message of love and the future of abundance and all of this. And here's the 14 cities. And I write an application to plan out the most optimized path for us to do all of that. That computer probably takes 5 to 7,000 seconds to do all of that math and do what's called the evaluation time from the time we execute the program to the time we get the answer back. 5 to 7,000 seconds, not a long time. We got a great itinerary. It's gonna be awesome. I'm assuming I'm traveling with you. We're traveling well. It's 4 seasons all the way. We're not, staying at any places that I normally stay at. We stay at the JR East Hotel in Akihabara over in Tokyo.
No, I always, when it's come to a company, I'm always to save as much money as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, but now you're the company, so, splurge a little. No. But we did that in 5 to 7,000 seconds, 14 cities. Now you say, you know what? Let's go to 22 cities. So difference of only 8. That same system would take thousands of years to get to that answer. And if we went to 28, it would take longer than the time of the known universe,
Right.
based on current universal estimates, which we know
Yeah.
are now in question.
Exactly.
And so these are what you call intractable problems. It's not that a classical computer couldn't get to those answers, like take a supercomputer. It's that it might take thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of years to get to that answer. And, we probably couldn't keep it running that long. We'd not be around. Some of those problems we might need to solve a lot sooner. So this is the first, and there's, people will say, oh, but what about neuromorphic? That's different than von Neumann architectures. But in classical computers, it's still all based on pretty much von Neumann architectures. This is the first change in computing in the history of computing. And no one is taking it, seriously enough to me. That's why I'm writing babies books and dummies books and articles and doing everything to make it as widely acceptable and digestible as possible. Because think back to 1959 and the invention of the integrated circuit, and think of everything that's changed, and think of the pace, like you talked about, changing faster and faster. And now think about, put a stake in the ground there and say, and now there's a completely new type of computer that can do things never.
I mean, I think
It's everything gets reinvented.
Yeah.
It's a new internet. It's new ways of communication. It's new material sciences. It's new biological sciences. It's new everything.
Let's talk like, how do you see it helping us get to the age of abundance for all? I mean, it does impact everything, but like, what are some of the most intractable problems that acceleration with quantum
the
systems?
one that there's kind of 3 that I kind of focus on, right? The first one is, love for my fellow man, eliminating disease, right?
Yep.
There are a lot of smart people, my business partner Mike being one of them, who are taken out of this world before they can probably fulfill their potential by cancers, or other diseases.
Yeah, my mom passed away from cancer.
So that's a very personal, touching one, right? I can name 50 people I know that have been, taken out by cancer, that probably could have made huge contributions to the world and to this vision that you're sharing with everybody on this podcast. So that's a big one for me. How does that happen? It happens in discovering new peptides and small molecule research and molecular science. A lot of that. Quantum computing will be infinitely better for them.
And massive simulations, right?
That's right. And that when I say the
insane.
molecular science, I'm talking about the simulations. Like caffeine molecule has like 160 components or something or whatever. I'm not a chemist. It would take an insane amount of cost to do a digital twin of that, hardware and software wise. But you could do it on a quantum computer in under 200 qubits, right? So this one for one, like using the physical world to stimulate, the physical world, that is going to be world changing in a number of areas. So there's that. The second one, after I think about, disease, I think about power, which arguably could be my number one, because AI is soaking up more and more power, and we all know that those data centers soak up water, and we know there's going to be a water crisis in the future, and so those are a very close 1 and 2. Not only will quantum computers use less power, quantum processor probably uses about the power of 3 hair dryers or so. Okay, now some of the other rigs around them can use more, but it's still infinitely less, in my opinion, than a lot of the systems we use today. But the discovery of new forms, you think about companies like General Fusion and others. We need new power. We used in 2024 about 680 exajoules of power. And now with AI and everything, in 23, sorry, and now in 24, we've already seen this creep up in the need for power. And, how do we transmit the power? What kind of power are we generating? How is it managed? All of these problems become very, very scientific, fundamental science problems. And therefore, I think quantum computers are going to be really great for exploring new forms of power, coming up with better battery chemistry for the storage of power, things of that nature. So disease and power.
And by the way, power, like, one book I finished recently is Deep Future by Pablo Holman. Great book. I wrote a very long review on it online. But power is the foundation of every major problem to solve, including like desalinization of our water, which Israel is like a real leader in, to nearly unlimited food and just I mean, literally, you could, if you solved power, you could have levitating cities,
Yep.
because you would have the power to do that.
My close third, again, it's hard to rank them, but I think of the thing, like most people, that affected me most, which is the disease that has killed my friends. I think of the need for power for us to be able to do a lot of these things we're talking about. And then for me, and people find this interesting, is agriculture. Um, Not just the chemistry behind better fertilizers and all of these things and more sustainable stuff and all of that, but if you look at the continent of Africa, over the last few years, they've lost 34% of their ability to produce food. Um, and I think everybody would agree Africa is an emerging economy, emerging area. Like it's all, so it's an important place. And so you talk about losing a third of your food production. It sounds horrifying,
Yeah.
right? So there's so many other things.
And we start out talking about Chad.
That's right.
There's a lot of people
That's
that
right.
are starving.
That are starving. And so I think about, and a better way to look at it, is probably, let's feed the people, let's keep them free of disease, and let's give them the power to do something. Would probably be how I would say it if I was, really positioning as like, what would I do first? I would probably try to start with the, providing, sustenance for people, moving to uh, giving them power for all the reasons, desalinization, or, you know, providing electricity. I mean, a lot of these places don't even have electricity, food or electricity. To giving them, the ability to cure diseases, eliminate diseases. There are so many opportunities in those three areas, let alone everything else. There are thousands of little opportunities in those areas. Just this form of cancer, just this discovery of a drug that delays the disease enough for you to get to that point. This fertilizer that allows you to produce more crops, or crops that are more resistant to certain things, be it, climate or disease or whatever. There are so many opportunities there. That's what fascinates me. I think the problem I have is there's not enough people working on those opportunities.
Yeah.
And so democratizing the technology in a way where everybody can participate in the scientific process. And I, by the way, I have a whole movement myself. I call it sci-curious, right? Getting as many people as curious about science as possible to get them to want to participate, and then to give them the platform on which they can not just participate, but more importantly, collaborate, and it not be about, I think things in medicine are so jacked up because research is not shared amongst everybody in a lot of cases because somebody's going to win a Nobel Prize, right? And that's that ego we talked about earlier, putting, like, if I had all of the knowledge in the world that I thought could help, I would share it with everybody. I don't really care. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I think history books become a thing of the past in the world that you're describing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the importance, and I think that's what I have a disdain for a lot of Silicon Valley right now, because when you see people hesitate on the humanity question, we see people do this, what I see is you don't want everybody to be equal because that's a problem for you. You have a fear of that.
Yeah.
Right? I don't have a fear. I don't care if, well, I think, somebody uses a technology that I worked so hard on to do something great and they even stare-step me or whatever. I care about, I now have a 29-year-old, a 9-year-old, and an 8-year-old. And everybody always says, I worry about the future for my kids. There has never been a more terrifying time as a parent than right now, thinking about the future of especially my two youngest children.
Yeah.
And thinking of, you're talking about them being seniors in high school in the time period we're talking about the greatest change, technologically, geopolitically, socially, everything, and spiritually, hopefully, in the world.
Yes.
Right in their formative
I know.
years. It's terrifying to me as a parent. I get asked by parents around the world all the time, executives, speaking at colleges, whatever, hey, how should I prepare my kid for this quantum AI kind of future? And
What's your answer?
the honest answer is like, I, I'm working on that.
Sure.
I don't know, but as soon as I know, I'll tell you. I give them all the normal stuff you would say about, immersion in this, and
What was it about it though? Because for people watching this, like,
it's such a difficult question to answer honestly, and I don't have a problem saying, you know, I don't know, because even 2 years ago, you probably would have told people computer science is still a good
Sure.
thing to be doing.
Yeah.
And now we're like, whoa, what do we do? Don't put your kid in computer science.
I wouldn't say that,
And
actually.
yeah, let's talk about that.
Our youngest actually is deep in computer science and robotics. So I think,
But being in it, but you're not, do you see them getting a formal degree in it? Do you
I
think
don't
about it?
know.
I mean, there,
Let's put it
that's
this
kind of
way.
where
If
I'm
they
talking
want
about it.
to, then I would 100% support it. Because if you go back in time just for a moment, um, it was probably 15 years ago, and maybe it was even longer than that. Maybe it was 20 years ago. Being 53 now, like it could have been longer ago. But when Thomas Friedman came out with the book "The World is Flat," one of my friends at that time, he stopped his son from doing computer science. He literally said, "You can no longer program." And he said, "There are going to be no jobs because it's all going to go to India. I've read this book, etc."
Ah,
And I told him at the time, in a very loving, respectful way, but I still told him, I said, "You are an idiot." And I said, "Thank goodness you were not my mom, because my
right.
mom saw that I had a passion and did everything she could to feed that passion unconditionally with love." And so if it's right for the child, and that really is their soul song, their
Yeah.
passion, their divine calling, however you want to say that, then I think you feed it with everything you've got. Because if you studied computer science today, yeah, are you going to be doing low level coding, et cetera? Probably not, but you're going to have a mastermind thinking strategy in terms of how to use it.
Yeah, when I talk about that,
You can just chat with it, but if you can think like a systems
that's
thinker,
right.
then if you're chatting with it,
Totally,
it
totally agree. I think you and I have the benefit of parents, and especially my grandmother, a huge influence on my life, who did that unconditional support.
yes.
Say, all right, we're gonna do
That
whatever.
was so
My
fresh
mom
out
and
from my
dad
mom.
both did that. I totally agree.
Yeah, my dad kind of did. I mean, I love my dad, and he was amazing. They both have passed away, sadly, but my dad, he invented everything in physical
Yeah.
world space. So all of,
Well,
and but he ultimately got it when he was later, and he
yeah.
was like, "I'm glad you didn't listen to me, and all this virtual stuff you've been creating. Like, I'm really proud of you." So we had a
A
reconciliation.
lot of things I could say about my dad. Extremely, Vietnam Green Beret, extremely tough guy, very built things of his world. I He never once failed to support me. At times
When you race with love.
when I was growing up, and I remember we had a neighbor that had a Epson computer, one of those little ones that had a modem. And that was super cool.
My first
And
mission was 110 baud.
my dad took one of his guns. He's a huge gun guy, and he traded it to the guy. And it was the thing he really loved, to get me that computer so that I could, he could keep encouraging that. So my mom and dad, and especially my grandmother, were extreme. That's one thing I'd say, they're extremely supportive about that. But you come back to that, I'm talking about more like the degree plans and the stuff. That's what sci-curious is about.
Yeah.
My answer right now to people is, get your kids sci-curious,
Yes.
curious about every science you can.
Yeah.
Computers, robots, whatever it is. Let them watch the videos on YouTube. Let them read the books. Let them go mess with stuff. Buy them the little kits with the little soldering guns, right?
Yeah.
100%. We agree on that. I worry though that those parents are so focused on the materialism again of like, my kid's going to have a job that
Yeah.
pays, is this degree or that.
Yeah.
That's where I talk about the like, is like about a computer science degree specifically. I think generalist win out in the future, and curiosity, driven
Yeah.
minds win out in the future.
Yeah.
So I think what you just said, the heart is let them play with all of it.
Yeah. Our oldest is a triple major in business, psychology, and creative writing. And I'm like, you actually may have the perfect combination for let's go. That is a generalist, yeah, kind of mindset. So she's very curious about
But
it.
he's got, that's the kind of people I think that are going to rise up and hopefully lead everybody, because you're still going to have people who are you know, they're going to be Luddites about it. They're not going to want to adopt. They're not going to want to change. And this is part of that, I keep coming back to that fear thing because we're talking about love. I think we got to eliminate that fear because people fearing it means they don't adopt it, which means it becomes a self-creating, self-fulfilling prophecy, a self-created reality. I was worried about being displaced by computers, so I didn't mess with AI and everything, and now I've been displaced, so I was right.
Right.
And that fear was right and drives people further and further away from that path. When reality is like, you should embrace all of that and everything, and you may miss an opportunity.
Yeah. I do want to address one thing really
Yeah.
quickly. Um, I do 100% agree with you that college is going to be dramatically remade in the next 3 years. By the time our youngest Yuzu goes to college, it's going to be very, very different because, you know, like I still hope she goes because then it's a social experience and it just, she can meet other people
1000%.
to, form companies
Why,
with or
why do you
whatever.
think I'm letting my youngest play Pop Warner football? Because it
Yeah,
puts him on that path to go, and
exactly.
it's social. But it's not. But when I say that, am I putting a little shade on institutions? 100% I am. I'm not putting any shade on education, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think
I hear you.
that a new types of institutions will emerge as well
They will.
because
They're going to have to be remade.
that's right.
I mean, it's going to be
and
radically different.
and you're already seeing that, right?
Yeah.
Like Elon starting schools and
Yeah.
people are starting schools and doing
Yeah.
stuff. So that is important. And one of the most important part is that social thing. What we're talking about is all based in social awareness and in social, being enamored with like, wow, there's a big community of people out in the world and I could learn a lot from
I
those
mean, just to
people.
put this in a time frame, to put a fine point on it, we're just over 1,000 days today since the launch of ChatGPT.
Yep.
3 years from now will be over 1,000 more days
Yep.
in an exponential curve.
That's right.
And so the people like Ethan Mollick, Mollick on LinkedIn, he's a Wharton professor that really is leading with AI in terms of the reinvention of education, the reinvention of it. Those are the people to follow because it is going to be radically remade.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's going to be wild. And so it goes back to, your point earlier, which is really the most important trait for humanity to really embody right now, outside of love, is adaptability.
Yeah.
So let's talk very practically about, let's say that someone is watching this and they're not technical at all. And they're looking at you and me and they're like, hey, Whurley and Brett have been like geeking out since they were young. And, I like was really lucky to have a mom who learned how to program with me at age 7, et cetera. One of the things that I want to discuss is, what do they do to be prepared? And one of the things I just want to throw out there is that they they should not look at my background as something that
As a prerequisite.
is a
100%
prerequisite, because now you could just literally talk to these things like a human being in any language.
This is the talk in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
This is the power of a billion minds. Part of what allows the power of a billion minds is the same thing that allows the whole what has happened. And I hope everybody listening and look directly in camera takes this to heart. The playing field has been equalized by technology when it comes to the acquisition of knowledge.
Yes.
Right? And so
Which is a beautiful.
it's an incredible thing. As I say everywhere, it's the greatest time to be alive in the history of our species. In the last 2 years, right? In part of that 1,000 days you're talking about, okay? I have been able to 10x, 50x, 100x my knowledge and interaction with the technology I work with, the quantum mechanics side, by asking questions, by being curious, by doing it. You don't need anything. I mean, good Lord, Google now puts the AI answer at the top above the search results.
Right.
You're like, what is quantum computing?
Yeah.
If you were a person who doesn't have a technological background, and maybe you've never been curious about it, and you're just not getting curious about it, wow, you have an advantage. They could do what we've done in a lifetime in the next 6 months, in the next year. It's incredible.
Right.
It's incredible. All you have to do is ask. And if you don't understand what it says, you can literally say things to like these chatbots are like, explain it to me like I'm 5.
Right.
Okay, now explain. I mean, there is no excuse for not learning as much as you can about everything that you possibly want to learn about.
Yeah. I mean, I just,
Like, what an incredible, I say this, I'm jealous. I'm jealous of everyone who is my kids. My 8 and 9-year-old can ascertain knowledge in the next week, month, quarter, year that took you and I
yeah.
5 years. You know, one of my stories I used to tell when I was first starting public speaking is I used to say, like, you know, I'd say, you know, you live the greatest time to be alive. And people like, and I was like, I used to have to cut UPC codes out of cereal boxes and go to a physical email box called the post office on my bike, which was several miles away,
Yep.
and mail it off and wait 6 to 8, 12 weeks
Yeah.
to get a electronic component in the mail,
Yeah.
and then piece them together over the course of like an entire summer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can apply for a credit card as a teenager and fire up more power on Amazon with a very limited credit union than most countries had 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, it's mind-blowing.
And that's the thing is like my biggest piece of advice would be to really just dive in and use these. I mean, first of all, you can use them for free. Second of all, if you want to pay for it, which I recommend, it's $20 a month. Most people have a Netflix subscription. They can pay $20 a month for ChatGPT.
Most people have a Netflix and a Hulu and whatever, you know, like, hey, drop one of those.
Just get one of those, like just in your future, because man, my rate of learning has gone up exponentially. I mean, I'm so curious about so many things, and I can just go in and boom, do a deep research report. And all I'm doing is I'm talking with it. I don't even need to know how to.
You got to watch that Abu video.
I will. Yeah.
I can't agree with you more and can't encourage everyone listening. 2018, I launched Strangeworks. I've read about quantum computing, I've read about quantum stuff. The level isn't deep or wide. I'm just fascinated with it. I have to go and travel around the world to meet specific professors who are experts in areas to learn from them. I have to get archaic books, some of which they didn't publish that many or whatever. This great to learn about the thing that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the internet and AI, the information age, gets a co-pilot. And I am on equal footing with everyone in my industry. I don't have their experience, sure.
Yeah.
But as far as the knowledge, as far as knowing, oh, that means that, and this goes with that, and this is how that works, I can just, like you said,
and if you forget the most esoteric pieces,
forget a research report. That's even better.
Right.
I mean, make me a 30-page report on the history of quantum mechanics over the last 100 years, from, you know, Einstein and Bohr's arguing to, you know, current day, this week, quantum computing, and go to bed and wake up in the morning to it in my inbox to a text. I've tied it into Twilio now. It says, boom, here's a text of a PDF with my report. And I can go to LM Studio and be like, make a podcast about this report. And so now I don't even have to read the 30-page report that was created magically for me while I was sleeping. I can listen to it in the car on the way over here. Which is actually something I was doing. I did a report last night. I was really curious about you know, the whole quantum compute, thermal compute argument, and all these other things. So I talked to it. I use Aqua. I don't know what you use. If you don't use Aqua, you should get it.
I don't use it.
Aqua's the best. You hit your.
How do you spell
it? Just like Aqua, AQUA.
And it's at .com or is it?
No, but if you search Aqua voice to text, it's amazing.
Okay.
Program it. You hit your key, and you say blah blah blah. You know, and you let go, or you hit it twice. And you just talk. And then wherever your text cursor is, it's going to put all that text in there. Amazingly accurate. Very, very.
So this is like way better than Siri.
Very little
Siri
training.
is so frustrating.
Very little training. Very amazing results. And so last night, I was curious about this. So what I did was I hit it and I just thought out loud for like 10 minutes. I'd also like to know about this. I'd like to know about this. I'd like to know about that. I put that into Claude, okay? And it put it in there. But what I did is at the end I said, now take everything I've said and give me the ultimate prompt to go do that for deep research. So I took all of that, I turned it into a prompt, I put that into Gemini, because I am a big fan of Gemini right now for the deep research. Deep research, here's Gemini. And then At the same time that was running, I had ChatGPT finding download links for PDFs on all this topic. So I took all those PDFs and I put those into Gemini with this masterful, like 3-page prompt on this.
Yeah.
And I was like, go. And then, it sent me the thing that it was finished. And I clicked in my little I love coding my own little tools like you do, I'm sure. I clicked on it and it put into LM Studio. And I can just listen to.
And Google, this is Google.
Yeah, so
Notebook
Notebook LM, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, now it's built into Gemini. So now when you get
Yeah.
your deep research, you can just click it and boof.
I took the Entrepreneur's Essentials when that came out, and I had each chapter discussed by the two AI.
Oh, I know. It's amazing, right?
And I announced that actually last year as, hey, now you can just binge it at the gym for any chapter you want,
Right. It's
with these two
amazing.
podcast hosts.
So, back to our point, there is no excuse
Mm-hmm.
for anyone to be like, I'm not technical. I don't know that.
Right.
I can't this.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, this is
my
really
son wrote a game for Roblox because he loves Roblox
Mhm.
using these technologies.
Sure.
And he's 9.
Yeah.
And he wrote that first time I think he was messing with that was with 7. I think what he published, just an insane game, when he was 8. Anyone can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone is a software developer now.
Yeah.
Everyone is a scientist. And people just haven't realized it. And you can pick out any topic and find out. And look, people are like, oh, well, there's this hallucinations, there's this and there's that. You'll learn about that as you go through it. You'll learn to prompt better. You'll learn that hallucinations are really a result of kind of a bad prompt, right? Like you kind of gave it that room. I love these stories about, oh, the AI told the reporter to leave his wife or whatever. Or my favorite one is lately, there was a study that said AI will, because of the incentives, it will lie and cheat and blackmail people. Go read that paper. They were like, we gave it all of this ability, and they even prompted it that you could lie or cheat or blackmail. So of course it's hidden. They're literally garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah.
It's like programming 101. Like you literally
It was like when
do that.
Evan Roos of the New York Times
Oh, yeah.
said that his AI was trying to convince him to divorce his wife, and
Yeah.
but he was kind of leading down that.
Dude, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Be a man, just divorce your wife. Like, then you don't gotta blame it on the technology.
Right, exactly.
God.
Well,
Like-
I don't think he got divorced. I think he's
Yeah.
like happily married still.
I'm just saying,
But he was leading it down that path, and it's gonna
Exactly.
play with you if you lead it down
That's
that
right.
path.
So you put in objective statements, you know where to leave it up, where not to. And if you don't know how to prompt, here's the great news. You can ask it.
Right, right.
How do I prompt
That's
to
right.
not have hallucinations with this? It'll be like
Right.
this. And again, people say, I showed somebody a prompt once. It was very long. They said, oh, I could never write that. I was like, I didn't write it.
Mhm.
I wrote a prompt that said, write me a prompt as of this, as a researcher in quantum mechanics. It does this, it does that. Make sure it's objective, eliminate hallucinations, put in references. That's why I like Gemini, because you get references on the internet
Yeah.
of everything Google's indexed.
Yeah.
So you got a question about, I'm not sure about that. You can literally click on it and go read it for yourself. And
Right,
be like, oh,
right.
it is.
Yeah.
It is the greatest time to be alive.
And so I just want to emphasize that, for everybody, watching this, is like get in the sand.
We got really excited
So
for that last moment, right?
Well, no, we did because honestly, like it's
amazing.
play, it's a lot of play. When we grew up playing games or chess or any of that stuff, it was also keeping our brain active. Like, what is that game that people play, Sudoku or whatever? I mean, like, there's all these things that people do to keep your brain active. This is the ultimate thing not to be intimidated about, because if you know how to speak to a
That's right.
human being, then you know how to use
Even
one
if
of
you
these
don't, if
apps.
you have a fear of speaking to a human being, guess what? No humans around. That's just you and that can do it.
Right, that's
But you said something there that I want to hit on. What is the greatest way to learn? Play.
Mhm.
And you're exactly right. Everything you said, and it's the greatest way to learn, and it's abundantly available for free
Right.
and or cheap. And there is almost no limit to the knowledge you can gain from
Yeah.
that. And so, I would love for people to get more curious about science specifically, but start with maybe you need help in this, help in that. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a repair. For the last 2 years, I have never called a repair person to the house. I've always started with,
Wow. Okay.
That's
good.
and now with Gemini,
Yeah.
with because
It's
it's
funny. I was
great
literally just having this conversation with my sister yesterday, and I was talking about the future of humanity, and that right now would be a good time to actually learn plumbing skills,
Yeah.
because it's going to take a long time for the robots to catch up, um, and to get kind of embodied enough to do the task that a plumber can do. And it was just kind of like a thing that we're playing around with. But I was like, do you realize how easy it would be to learn how to be a plumber now?
Oh my gosh.
Like
It's incredible.
you could have ChatGPT write a tutorial to take you through a 5-week course on being a plumber, including all the
Not only could you do that, you could take Gemini. And so let me be fair. I don't have a preference on the tools. I pay for the best subscription on Anthropic and OpenAI
Yeah.
and Gemini.
I do too. And I just want to make
You
a
know.
point because, people look at us as like maybe, oh, well, they can do that because they have money or whatever.
No, it doesn't.
I pay like per month. Okay. I probably pay about $100 a month. Okay. For
I
these tools. Okay. That's it.
I may have a problem.
Okay. But that's it. And I'm just saying,
Is the intervention? I pay
no, but I mean, $100 is
paying
like not.
I'm paying a lot more. I'm paying about $1,200 a month for all my subscriptions. However,
But you're also a CEO of
but hang on,
Strangeworks.
hang on, but why? I would put it on credit if I couldn't afford it, and I'll tell you why. In my depending on where you're at. I used to work morning, noon, and night. 3 years ago, I was putting in some 20-hour days, 16-hour days. I have been able, for the first time in my career, to do thought experiments and think about my business and think about the future and have time. A year ago, even, I wouldn't be able to sit here and have this conversation right now on a Tuesday from 1 to 3 because my time was crazy booked. And I think back to that Charlie Rose interview with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, where Bill Gates makes fun of his planner. And he's like, look, there's nothing in blah, blah, blah. And, Bill Gates starts at 4 a.m. and every moment, every second is planned. And I had been living my life that way for the majority of the time at Strangeworks. And I'd always thought about that. And what Warren Buffett said, which was what he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing it because I think it's even more important than the way he put it, was that, power and all of that. He said, I can buy anything I want. I can make money. I can do all this stuff. I can't manufacture time. And therefore, that is the most important commodity and is the one I should spend the least. I should be very careful where I invest, basically. I pay $1,200 a month for subscriptions that give me hours and hours of my day back, dozens of hours in a 7-day period.
Yeah.
And that time is worth incredibly more than that.
Wow.
I have found a way to use.
You need to learn from you.
I've found a way to use AI at it's a big investment, right? And my wife's going to watch this. She's going to be like, what? You do what? It's all expense, baby. Wink. No. But I have found a way I have made a heavy investment in these programs. And over time, I'll start, I don't use that one as much, it'll wheedle down. But I started with everything. And I did it because I have found something. I found that Warren Buffett is wrong. You can manufacture time. You can buy time. And you can buy time by taking these artificial intelligence tools and disseminating to them what you're trying to learn and having them do the research and setting them up to answer emails and setting them up to do this and do that. And all of a sudden, you can buy time.
You know what? This is a very interesting question. And I wonder if Warren Buffett uses ChatGPT.
I don't know. We should.
I know that he starts every day by reading for 4 hours.
Yeah.
But think how much more efficient that could be if he used 4 hours of ChatGPT to learn about anything he wants to learn on any company, any,
absolutely,
any analysis of any company, deep research on where Microsoft's market cap's going to be in 2 years or whatever he wants to learn.
Whatever. But so I had somebody. We were at a kind of think tank thing. I said, oh, I got all those subscriptions. All right, which one are you paying for? And I said, good Lord, you're spending $1,200 a month on AI tools.
Right.
And I said, think about $1,200 a month, car payment.
Yeah.
Okay. The fact that I can spend money of any kind, and you could do this for $20 a month for most people, right? Like you said, I am the CEO of Strangeworks, and we have crazy, complicated, lives with all these different responsibilities. But I spend that a month to get back hours in my day. And let me tell you the greatest thing ever, to bring it back to the topic of this. You're talking about love and all of that. I've back to being able to watch a movie with my wife, even though she walked out of Mission Impossible. And I'm going to tell you right now, I don't blame her. Tom Cruise, that movie was horrible. The first one was amazing. The second one was just she kept where she left was, he's running everywhere. He's running about a car. They might have already.
If Tom Cruise is watching this, he's probably not going to be on the Love Sphere podcast. No, he's a lot more.
Oh, he can't. And it can be like, that guy's an idiot. But he's running everywhere. And I literally will show you a text message on my phone, because at the end, this guy takes off in a plane, and there goes Tom Cruise running. And I texted my wife. She said, "Oh, I took a little video to go, he's running again." And I'm like, why is he running everywhere?
Yeah. It's kind of like an American Ninja Warrior competition for Tom Cruise. Right. As if, he's already qualified. He could be an American Ninja Warrior.
But back to that love thing. The fact that would I spend $1,200 a month to be able to sit with my wife for 2 hours, cuddle on couch, watching a movie all day long, every day? You cannot put a price on that.
I know, that's beautiful.
Would I pay $1,200 a month to be able to not be working on Saturdays, to spend 3 hours with my kids at Pop Warner this weekend? Absolutely.
Yeah.
To spend the 2 hours, 3 hours I spent last night editing the video of their game, putting it to the NFL music to send to all of the parents, so that my kids are like, yeah, my dad made that, and everybody gets to see their kids' big play from the game. Absolutely. So what am I paying $1,200 a month for?
Yeah.
For the freedom to gain back dozens of hours of my time that I get to invest in any way I can, that I choose to invest with my wife, with my kids, with charity.
Well, this example you just gave of the highlight reel too is you're manifesting more joy in others.
For everybody.
Yeah. So you're actually expressing love.
That's exactly right.
You're multiplying.
It's a work of love.
Yeah.
Right? It's you think of like the different ways people express their loves. It's an act of service.
Yeah.
Right? It's something I can do. There's nothing. But last year, even before I had all this AI, I didn't get to edit the last 2 videos because I just didn't have the time. I put together one amazing video and I was like, that's kind of it, guys. Like, I'm out. This year, I'm working with the coach and uploading all of the reels of every play I take a video of, so he can go back and plan plays. And so it's useful to him. And the parents get this, and the kids get to see themselves make a big play on the video. They watch it 100 times. It's great for them. It gives them confidence. It makes them stronger. It makes the other kids go, I want to be in that video next time, right? But all of these things, from watching the movie with my wife, to being at the kids' game, to doing this, to being able to come here, and I'm really thankful for this opportunity, because I admire you like way more than you ever know.
Well, thanks.
And I think this mission,
I learned a lot.
And I think this mission you're on is so incredible. Is that worth $1,200 a month? It's worth 10 times that all day long. And so I have finally solved for the biggest problem in my life, which, when I saw that video with Charlie Rose, I was like, wow, what a profound statement he just made. He's like, I'm one of the richest people in the world. You know what I can't do? Time. But it turns out you kind of can.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And that's what this technology is enabling me to do. And what am I doing every year, every month? I'm refining it more and more and more and more. And now I'm having it write programs for my iPhone. I went back. I haven't had a developer subscription for Apple since Chaotic or whatever. I went back, and I'm kind of like the captain of the U.S. ship in the Hunt for Red October. Like, I could be sitting in Playboy Dimensions a month. Like, I haven't created it in so long. and now I'm like drafting out some stuff. I started coding. I was like, why am I even doing this? Why don't I just vibe code this thing that I want? So I'm collaborating with this entity. And that's what the talk that you're going to put the link in is about, is this co-scientist, co-collaborator, where you don't have to have the knowledge in an area. You just have to have an idea.
Is this talk one where you talk about all the tools that you use?
I don't.
Or do you have?
I've never done that. I need to do it. I need to do that talk.
If you do this by the time this goes live,
what's great?
Then
I could literally go
to the blog post.
I could literally go home tonight. If you'll text me later tonight, after like 8 or 9, I literally tell my little engine I built, take all the things I've asked you to do and the tools I've used and write a thing up that you can put at the bottom.
No, totally.
And it'll be done.
Yeah, because I think that would be so valuable.
I'm talking about how amazing is that?
Like, one of the things that I did last weekend, the episode that's going to air before this one is with Ethan Holland. And Ethan Holland has an amazing AI newsletter. He's been doing it since the beginning of ChatGPT, and every week, and now he's up to 36,000 links and counting. He has like meticulously learned constantly every week, he has carved out time to learn. And so honestly, the reason I went up there, I mean, he's one of my best friends. I've known him for several decades, is like, Ethan, I just want to learn from you. And so we just jammed for 2 days on AI tools.
That's awesome.
And I feel like someone plugged me into the matrix and leveled me up. But then we did a podcast, and it was super
Is
fun.
that though?
But you know, by the way,
But
like,
that statement just means what your listeners need to hear.
totally.
It is plugging in and looking
Yeah.
up. It is taking yourself and making 10x, 100x,
Yeah.
whatever. And it's not some weird, you're going to become part of all this
No,
weird
no,
fear stuff.
no.
You have a tool that is the greatest tool you could ever have to do anything your heart desires, anything you can imagine. For me, you know, it's different than other people. Somebody might want to be like, I want to write my own health and wellness app. You can do that now.
Yeah.
Somebody else might want to be like, I want to start a business. You can learn all those things.
Right.
You can, all these things. For me, it's that my wife has taught me the importance of love and family and all of that. And at Strangeworks, one thing I can say to the credit of my co-founders and my entire team is we've always called ourselves a family-first company. You disappear for all morning, we're not going to worry where you're at. Your job's getting done. We don't care. If you have to do something for your family, that's important. Do it first.
Yeah.
But I've never been able to actually do that because of time.
Yeah.
And now I get this time back, and I invested in these amazing things.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's it. But it could be anything.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to change your career. Maybe you want to be a designer. There's all these image tools. There are all these things. I don't know if you've played with Nano Banana yet or any of the video tools.
I played a lot with BO3.
You've always have a story
with the Google.
It's already advanced beyond BO3, like by orders of magnitude. It's incredible. You've always had a story idea. Maybe that's what you use it for.
Yeah.
And you publish that kid's book, or you publish a
I was playing
story.
with Ethan too. That was super fun. Yeah.
Flux is awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, Ethan gets access to Flux. We all not everybody had access. Probably.
Idiot brand too. We were having a lot of fun with. I mean, the character development in that is actually going to help my wife finish her book.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
You know, John Papola, who I referenced earlier, does that Dad Saves America podcast. Good friend of mine. He's kind of my Ethan, but in like the film and creative world and everything. And I'm always seeing videos. I'm like, look at this, like, look at that. Like, commercials are done. Like, this is done. I mean, I don't know who it was, but it was one of the companies. I think it was a sports company or something, did a commercial that was all AI generated during a college game day.
Yeah.
It was like a
I
big
watched
deal.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty good.
Here's the point to take out of that. It doesn't matter whether you thought it was great, you thought it was middling, or you're a producer and you're like, oh, pretty good, it was average. What matters is that anybody watching us right now could do that.
Yep.
They could use ChatGPT or Claude or whatever to come up, they could deep research something on Gemini, come up with a thing, find out about commercials, tell it to do the thing, have it write the script, do it all, and take that and make a prompt and put it in there. And all they're doing is like a train conductor, right? And they could produce that commercial. Think of the power that puts in the hands of everyone, but think about it in the context of a small business who couldn't afford to hire somebody to do a commercial that 3 years ago would have been a $20,000, $30,000 effort that can now do it for almost nothing, like you said, $20, $100. So if we put it on social media, think about a spiritual or religious leader who can't get their message out, not being able to take and quantify those. I don't know if you've seen the Bible AI stories; they're hilarious.
I haven't.
They're a little bit satire. They're like they're basically all the Bible characters are social media influencers. So they're like like the guy's getting put to the lines. He's like, dude, they don't know that God is about to bring me BRB or whatever, and all this stuff. They're hilarious. And they're extremely well done.
Right.
Think of the power. You talk about love, and one of the greatest things you can do to love everyone else, and one of the greatest ways to learn is to teach, right? And share your knowledge. Just openly share that.
That's how the elders actually helped raise humanity in the past.
That's
right. Was the
and I think everybody can do that with their little thing, with their little story.
Yeah.
What an incredible, like, exciting time to be in. My son makes these crazy little weird videos, and he showed to me all the time with these little tools. That's something that when I was getting ready to go to college, I tried to go for a semester at Texas State Technical College in Waco. For film and video. That's something that used to be 4 years a thing that now is an hour of him playing around. He's like,
Right.
I'm a video editor now.
Right.
Here it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
So like
Cool. Yeah.
it's me doing the thing, jumping off the bunk bed you told me not to jump off
Yeah.
in slow motion, doing all things.
Go back to, let's just go back just a little bit into May again of 2023. We're all in Austin Next podcast. One of the things that I said,
Finding out, man, we like each other a lot more than we thought we might.
yeah, totally.
You agree?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and one of the things on that podcast that I said is that I see a future of billions of personalized products and services.
Yep.
Because the barrier to creativity is going to be shattered. And this is this was 6 months into, after ChatGPT launched and the moratorium call, et cetera. So it was like the shade of that. Now, like what you're talking about, it's obvious. Like think about how anybody, like you could be a plumber, you could be an electrician, you could be a religious teacher, whatever you are, you could just totally reinvent yourself and create so many personalized products and services in your field.
And as you said, there's a plus to that, and there's a potential big, those things can be abused too. But, Mike Irwin, huge influence on my career. I mean, Mike and I worked together at Apple in the 90s and worked together. He was the founder of Ecliptic Capital. We worked together through his death, literally. And he always saw this future. And that's why I'm so disappointed he's not here to see it in person.
Yeah.
Mass customization, mass personalization.
By the way, we're going to get into
all of those.
Actually, his soul is eternal, and so he still is here.
That's true.
But let's get into that. I would love to go into spirituality now.
Sure.
Okay, so on spirituality, I believe in a certain kind of world construct about what the nature of our reality is, and it has actually made me an even more loving person towards humanity. And I've been on a soul quest this year. I've read over 40 books, probably over 45 at this point, on everything from quantum physics, which is super fun, AI, spirituality, and consciousness. And I've kind of got this like smorgasbord of these things like in my head now. And I'm finding like enormous amounts of synchronicity in them all. And with the short stories I wrote, it was a way to unpack that. So you should have seen the prompt that I used to help write those with me. And it was super fun to play with AI in doing that. Because I mean, that was a long prompt because I fed it a lot of information about what I've learned. And, one of the tools that has helped me as a leader has been psychedelics.
Yeah.
And it's helped awaken me. But, I think other people have been awakened through meditation. I think some people just had awakening. I was talking with one of my really good friends, a woman who has gone through a really bad divorce recently, and she's an amazing entrepreneur. And she had this awakening recently just in the shower. I mean, she was like in the shower, just suffering from just the trauma of it all, and just felt the presence of God like come and embody her. And she called me and she said, I want you to know, like, I now understand what you mean. But there's lots of different ways that people have had that awakening. And the reason I bring this up is that I think that if our leaders, like let's say that there's 2,000 leaders in the world that ultimately rule over about 8.2 billion. It's kind of what the math is probably like. Putin like controls a very large number of people. So if our leaders like had a heart change, and realize that the nature of a reality isn't just the physical world where it is if you're a materialist and you just believe that we're on a random rock and nothing matters and there's no divine intervention and there's no such thing as God or consciousness or anything, and it's just like, 13.8 billion years ago, grant me the miracle of the Big Bang, formed whatever this is, and that here we are, and somehow consciousness just magically popped out of our brains, and that's what it is. Then it gets you in a mindset where it's like, well, I'm going to take all I can. You only live once. Like, I might as well, like, get as rich as possible and, like, like it just ingratiate my body and everything else to the max. Um, and when you have this worldview of actually there is such a thing as divine intervention, and I look back at my career now with this lens of love, saying every business I started and everything that happened in my life, which ultimately led to where I'm at today, was a result of divine intervention. Like literally starting with my mom, like believing enough in me,
Right.
like she had something divine happen in that moment. Now, whether or not she was conscious of it, I don't know, but because divine intervention, sometimes you're not actually aware that it's the divine poking you. You just
You
think,
think you're lucky.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
something just happened.
So I'm just curious, like, what is your worldview on that? You and I've talked about psychedelics. I know that you
Yeah,
also have had experience, and
yeah. I
and
mean,
also you're unusual as a friend of mine because one of the first books I read on my own soul quest this year is Proof of Heaven by Ibn Alexander. And
yeah,
he had a near death experience, which really opened him up to the divine and the reality that we're living in. And he was kind of like a materialist and had kind of lost faith, and it woke him back up. And then he created his journey for the rest of his life to tell that story to help people realize that we live in this beautiful reality.
I think so. I was in a bad car accident in 1993, Friday the 13th, 1993. It's why 13 is my lucky
Mm.
number. And I was, dead on the side. And then I was bleeding internally and taken home for hours and rushed back to the emergency room. I mean, there's no reason for me to be here, like
Mhm.
none.
Mm.
Okay. And to tie it together, earlier you asked me about, I told you about that kind of depressive time during Chaotic Moon when I was,
Mhm.
had all the success I was having. Part of that reason was that I didn't have purpose. And I've always felt like I'm here for a reason,
Mhm.
but I never know what that reason is. And I went through times where I was fighting against that early on to where I was like, yeah, something will happen, to where now I'm like actively engaged in that. And, that, I, so you have that happen. You have a PTSD and a trauma with that took me a long time to face, even though I would tell you it was no problem. It was clearly a problem. You have me meeting my wife, this person who just, Pamela loves love. She's my everything. She's my inspiration. She's, love of my life. She's phenomenal and opened me up.
I married my soulmate too.
So she opened me up to that, right? Like she's very critical sometimes, but
Mhm.
I used to take it as just criticism and not coming from a place of love of like, here's how, like objectively you're looking or acting or thinking about this or whatever. So take the accident and the experience I had, which the only thing I've ever said, as you know, is like anybody who thinks there's not something else is wrong.
Mhm.
Okay. Like 100%, it's not chemicals in your brain. It's not whatever. Um, I don't know what my purpose is still, but I feel like I'm getting close to it. And this current journey is a big part of it.
Mhm.
I also feel having kids again and two younger kids, I look at my kids and I think, my purpose could be as simple as just raising them up in this way and right.
Mhm.
It could be changing the world with quantum computing. I don't know, but I'm just going to do all the things in the right way and trust that, what's supposed to come out of it is going to. Um, After meeting my wife, look, I used to argue with her. I used to have issues because I hadn't resolved some of this stuff. So I did a lot of therapy. I did pretty much all the therapies you can think of around this PTSD,
Mhm.
and finally ended up doing psilocybin therapy. And it was almost an instant connection and cure. It didn't change anything. It gave me the ability to go and relive that moment from a view of just accepting, like, this is a thing that has happened that I do have to deal with. Um,
And that
to
moment being
the accident,
the near death
the
experience.
near-death experience and accident, and really embrace it, and it really changed. I think
Mhm.
I think for military veterans with PTSD, for victims of sexual abuse, for a lot of, I think this and ketamine therapy as well, when done right, when not a
Mhm.
recreational drug,
Right.
can be very,
Yeah, I'm not a fan of it
can be
recreational.
very, very powerful
Mhm.
for people in their recovery. And that led me to, I did try ketamine therapy to get into a meditative state, like thought experience. I found that very fascinating. Um, I did do ayahuasca just to see what it was like and try it. Was a very interesting because it's a very spiritual form of
Right.
of that. And all of these things have opened my mind and changed some thoughts I had and some you know things I was bringing in as I thought that was prerequisite. And this isn't prerequisite, but here's this thing I never thought that was.
What do you think is the nature of a reality after all of this?
I don't know. I mean, the honest answer is, I think, do I believe in simulation theory? I mean, man, I'd love to program the computer that could do that. This still sounds incredible. Um, do I believe that we're all much more connected than we would ever admit or maybe even realize? 100%. I think deja vu is probably less it's a change in the matrix and more of an entanglement of some connection with a person or a place or whatever that's you're realizing that. Um, I don't have any past life memories. I've never done that. Maybe I'll do that one day. I don't question people who have. That's everybody has their own story and approach. But I think for me, there's I'm not a Bible quoting person, but if you think of faith, hope, and love, right? And the greatest of these is love, right? I think that the nature of reality is we're creating it. We think of the past really in a weird way, if you think about it, both scientifically and spiritually. And we think about the future in a weird way. Like we worry about so many fears and concerns that may never even happen, literally imagined, and we let them mess up the moment we're in right now. And I think moment to moment, listening to that thing people call gut feel. Don't like this person, or like this person, or want to do this, or don't do that, or I'm going to go left or right or whatever. I think those are those little moments of intervention, kind of gentle, guidance from the universe.
That is called the Tao, by the way.
And I was just going to say, and you've recently read, that is kind of how the Tao describes that, right?
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And I think people don't want to consider spirituality in their lives because as humans, we have very healthy egos and we think we're in control. The dominant species on the planet, you dominate in business or whatever. And I think that's a really piss poor attitude. And I think it's a very unhealthy attitude. I think it's mentally unhealthy. I think it builds connections in your brain that aren't there and they block connections that, are being gifted to you, right? You're almost looking a gift horse in the mouth in a way. So I try to stay very open. I have friends they're atheists, and when I talk about them, I say, I'll defend them in front of my friends. There's hundreds of gods. They believe in like one less than you do. You're this devout and whatever, right? So like, give them a break, right? And I have people that are agnostic, and I respect that. And I have people that are super religious, and I go to church with my wife on Sundays.
Yeah.
I
know lots of atheists that are still very loving people. Like
100%.
But they kind of, they believe that the universe is a loving force.
That's right.
And
which makes them kind of not that far off from what we're talking about, does it?
Right.
Which brings us all back to say, I mean, look, think about it.
And by the way, simulation theorists, I know some of those too, who believe the simulation is encoded with love as the highest order value.
I mean, who am I to judge? I can see that too. But like, if there's not a bigger force, why don't you go around raping and killing all that you want? Well, you do, which is none.
Right.
Like,
I mean, I do believe whatever the reality is. And I think we all have to be very humble at what the reality is. We're all just grasping at it. It is rooted in love. Would you agree with that?
I think the universe is rooted in love.
Yeah.
And I think that I do feel this. I've never said this anywhere, and I don't mind saying it on tape. All of that lack of purpose I've had in my life, all of that searching of, look, I was dead twice in the same day. There is no reason. There is every reason for me not to be alive right now. I'm obviously there for some reason. It's not luck. It's not, I don't have some super biological power. there is a reason far beyond my comprehension that 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 I'm still here. I'm extremely lucky to wake up every morning and breathe my first big gasp of air in the morning. And I often think back to what it was like being in that moment. And so I think the one thing I've never said that I really believe is I feel something getting closer. Maybe it's my purpose. Maybe it's a revelation of the things we're talking about, whatever. But I feel that on a very broad, very general sense. I feel that we are going through
I feel it too.
a huge change. And I I'm super open to it and very excited about it. But, think about things or want to make decisions on things.
Hmm.
And, it's like I love Rush, right? It's one of my favorite bands.
It's a great band.
And
A lot of good storytelling in that
great,
band.
great, one of the greatest lyrics I have is, when you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice, right? And if given the choice between it's just life and you die, or um, there's nothing else, or you don't need to give a shit about your fellow man, or blah blah blah, or whatever, and you could have these great experiences, learning through everybody, living your life with love, living your life with love being the purpose of trying to, like that really upsets me that you said that, but let me hear you out and try to connect with you a little more and understand. And maybe I'll learn something from that. Maybe like, oh, I completely misinterpreted the thing that you were arguing or whatever. Why would you not choose the latter?
Right.
Like, it just doesn't make sense not to. And again, I can only credit my wife. Pamela has taught me more about love and more about life
Yeah.
than I would have ever thought possible. I'm 13 years older. I got a lot more experience in all these areas and this and that, and there's all these reasons. And she has been a gift from the universe to lead me to that, to get me to understand that, to put me not where I need to be because I don't feel like I'm there yet. I feel like I've got a lot of stuff I still question and missing and all, but to put me on that, be part of a big part of putting me on that path to, why do I want to do Strangeworks? Why do I want to give technology to everybody? Why do I want to encourage people to use these tools and have the conversations that we're having?
Yeah.
And I just think, it's, all we need is love.
Yeah.
It is a source of sustenance and energy and
You just enjoy the
enlightenment
Beatles.
and all of that. I did.
Oh, yeah, I need his
because
love.
My wife's favorite band is the Beatles,
Oh, nice.
and so
Nice.
yeah. So thanks for helping
Well,
me.
we better wrap this up,
Thanks
brother.
for
Hey,
thanks for hooking me.
thanks so
Sure,
much. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to chat with you anytime, and
Yeah.
I will
love
get you a list
this.
of tools to put in, and
Awesome.
everybody should use those tools.
Yeah.
There is no reason not to do this.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of Love Conquers Fear. We have an amazing lineup coming up of just incredible people, and we're going to be going this deep with them. I really want to thank Whurley. He's such a good friend. He's so smart. He's so talented, and he's so rooted in love. And you have gotten to see a conversation like the ones that we have off camera.
That's right.
And I'm just feel very lucky to know you. And I wish you the best of luck with Strangeworks. And I know what you're doing to try to help humanity to get to that age of abundance for all.
I have to tell you, such an honor to be here because when we first started talking about this journey you're on and everything, I can tell you, I can think of nothing more important, nothing more inspiring or encouraging about the future of the world that I worry about a lot right now.
Yeah.
And watching what you're doing has just been incredible. And getting to be a small part of participating in it is just like I was over the moon when I got your message, and I couldn't have been happier. And I really appreciate you taking time to have the conversation.
Awesome, man. Hey, thanks so much, buddy.
you.
I really appreciate it.